not just a contagious vector of emotion, you're like the super bug of emotion. Like, you know, the antibiotic resistant staph or something. You're like the MRSA of emotion. Because it turns out that positive emotions make us super resilient. People with a positivity ratio of 3 to 1, they're not only happier and more successful, they live 10 years longer and they're twice as likely to survive any illness or injury. So you guys will be around for a long time, spreading your contagious awesome. So well done. Okay. So that's a little bit of why we think we can type this vector of awesome. But before we go on, we do have a brief interruption for words of wisdom from a Mr. John Combs. Does anyone here know John Combs? Anybody? All right. I didn't know him until a couple days ago. I saw this tweet. He said, I just noticed that my first panel at PAX East is at the same time as the Avant Games keynote, going to be speaking to an empty room. I didn't think that sounded very fun, so I asked him, I tweeted back, I'm like, hey, do you want to say something to the keynote? So, his panel is on the state of the industry. What are your career options? I think he's talking about a game that he's just shipped called Monday Night Combat. Yeah. And I said, if you could tell the entire keynote room one thing about career options for gaming, what would it be? So here's your words of wisdom from John Combs. If you want to be a game developer, be a game developer. Don't want to be a game developer. Don't plan to be a game developer. Don't wish to be one. Be one. Go make a game. Yes. Awesome. By showing you chicken soccer bowling, I know you won't feel intimidated by having to go make a game. Okay, so back to the keynote. So, I believe that with great gaming comes great responsibility. Games are kind of like the radioactive spider that bit Peter Parker, and now we're walking around with all these superpowers, able to provoke our positive emotions, go into a state of eustress, spread the awesome everywhere we go, 250 lives a day. But I feel like right now as gamers, and I hope you're not offended by this, we're kind of like at that moment in the Spider-Man story. Yeah. We're kind of like at the moment in Spider-Man where Peter Parker thought that the most awesome thing he could do was get inside this cage and do some kind of fake wrestling, and then he'd win some money. That would be awesome. You know, I kind of feel like gamers are still in the cage, that we are using a lot of our powers in game worlds, in virtual worlds. We have these superpowers, we haven't quite figured out how to use them in the real world yet. I think it's time for gamers to break out of the cage and go, you know, do some stuff in the real world that could really show off our superpowers and do something extraordinary outside the cage of the virtual environment. So I'd like to share with you a few games that help us do that. But first, the theory. So I call this the springboard effect. And the springboard effect means that we use games as a springboard to real life. It doesn't mean we stop playing the games we love. We keep playing the games we love. But then we take those emotions and who we are in games into the real world. And I don't mean this exactly. But I couldn't blame you if you thought I meant that, because I did show you the Kado Damacy. No, what I mean more is like thinking about how we feel in game worlds and bringing that determination and that curiosity and that resilience to real life. You know, or put another way. Yeah, you guys might have seen that. That was a good one. I like that one. Right, what's past is prologue. Games have been training us to do something extraordinary. Okay, so let me tell you about, oh, you laugh now, but this is a sad tale. This is the death-defying part. By the way, that was the life-changing part of the keynote, the whole, you know, positive stress, contagious vector of emotion. Now we're at the death-defying part. Okay, so I hit my head about 1.5 years ago, and I had a concussion, and it was a bad concussion, and it didn't heal properly. So about a month after I hit my head, I was still nauseous every day, vertigo just from walking down the street. I couldn't read or write for more than a few minutes at a time. And this was particularly challenging because I was in the middle of writing my book. I'd taken a leave of absence from work, and I was supposed to be writing a book, and I couldn't even read or write anymore. It was really the worst time of my life. This is something I wrote at the time to describe the experience of the concussion. Everything is hard. The iron fist is pushing against my thoughts. My whole brain feels vacuum pressurized. If I can't think, who am I? It took me about an hour to scratch that out, and then I stopped trying to write. So my doctor told me there were things that I had to avoid in order to heal my brain. No reading, no writing, no video games, no computer time, no running, and no caffeine. In other words, no reason to live. I mean, this was a low, low time.
Yeah,
it's funny, but actually, depression and anxiety are really common side effects of having a concussion. And in fact, suicidal ideation is a common experience when you have a head injury. You don't really want to die, but your brain starts to tell you that you want to die. It's a very strange phenomenon. And it actually started happening to me. It was a new experience, and it was terrifying, actually. And I really didn't know what to do. On August 18th, 2009, so about 6 weeks after I hit my head, I really had this sort of turning point moment where I thought to myself, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to turn this into a game. Because my doctor told me that if you don't stop the depression and anxiety, the brain can't heal, that it actually changes the biochemistry and will actually prevent your brain from getting better. So my doctor told me, whatever you do, just be happy. Which is like not the best advice. But still, I was writing a book about how games promote positive emotion and bring us closer together with our friends and family. So I thought maybe I could make a game that would make recovery feel more possible by provoking my optimism, more interesting by provoking my curiosity, more self-motivated by provoking a sense of agency, and more meaningful by provoking a sense of awe and wonder. And I wanted to do this not just for me, but for the people around me, because it was really stressful on my husband, for me walking around crying every 5 minutes, not able to do anything for myself. My friends and family were a little freaked out. I mean, you know how it is when somebody gets sick or injured and you don't know what to say to them and it feels awkward and weird. So I thought, I gotta make a game. I gotta get past all of this. Instead of telling them all my problems, I'll just invite them to play a game with me. Okay, so here's the game that I invented. Mission number 1, create your secret identity. You're not yourself when you're sick, so why not be somebody better? So I decided to be inspired by Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That made me Jane the Concussion Slayer, and then all of my symptoms were the forces of evil that I had been destined by fate to battle against. Yeah, Jane the Concussion Slayer. So mission number 2, recruit